this guy, he and I are like the two most significant tennis people in this country, and yet neither one of us were really able to watch much of Wimbledon because we both were doing some world travels. He was busy climbing Mount Fiji out in Japan. You know him from NFL Daily, the NFL Network, and of course, Courts of Thunder. He is our friend, Mr. Gregg Rosenthal, and he's back with us now here on GCR. How's your body clock doing right now, pal?
It is terrible. I stupidly took a red eye to Massachusetts too since I got back. But your jet lag is not good either because you called it Mount Fiji, not Mount.
Oh, did I say Fiji? Did I really say Fiji? Jesus.
You did. This is not an under the radar mountain. This is
no, I know what it is. I assure you, I'm familiar with it. I am familiar. Yeah, I'm still like crashing at about 8 o'clock at night. I got back on Monday, and waking up at about 5 in the morning. So I've got that going for me for the last couple of days after being in Tanzania. Quickly on Wimbledon, really bummed for Coco, who flirted with disaster the entire tournament. But it looked like everything had opened up for her. I really thought at the end that she was going to win. It's a real bummer for that to have played out the way that it did.
Yeah, Noskova, who won the title, was playing so well, and a 21-year-old with big power. Like Coco would have presented, I think, bigger problems for her in the final than Mukova did. But I would not put it past Noskova winning the match. But it is brutal. It's pretty rare to have one shot that you will probably remember for the rest of your life. And Coco had a high forehand match point to go to her first Wimbledon final, and she chose to hit a drop shot, and it didn't even come close. You just want to, she had a good attitude about it afterwards. She's never made it that far in Wimbledon. I think she'll have her chances. She played well in the tournament overall.
I had a listener who asked me, you and I both revel in watching Alex Zverev lose, but unfortunately, the guys ahead of him let us down, not being there or losing in weltering in the heat in Paris. I had someone ask me if he's actually closing the gap on Sinner and Alcaraz, and my answer was I don't think so. There was a part of me that worried that him winning one would help him mentally, but I still think, even though I didn't even think Sinner was great necessarily, I just think he and Alcaraz are still decidedly ahead of everyone. It's just, unfortunately, I think Zverev is the separated number 3 at this point.
I think he is probably playing the best ball of his career, and I think it did help him out. And I did watch that final when I got home, actually, just like doing some stuff on replay. And at least he was going for it. I always hate watching him because he's such a pusher, such a tall guy. He's closing the gap on them like the U.S. is closing the gap in men's soccer. It's like, yeah, they're probably a little better, but it's like
they're still
it doesn't matter that they're better.
Yeah, that's the reality, is that those two dudes are just still better than everyone. Hopefully, Carlos is back for New York. All right, how do we have this? Because I'm at the place now where I just don't even want to talk. Like, obviously, Lamar Jackson is not the 69th best player in the NFL. Like, obviously, that's insanity. But in all the other stuff and the talking head nonsense that they do on certain networks, it's absurd. How do we have the adult conversation about where Lamar Jackson is? A disappointing season because of injury? Like, what is the adult way to talk about this and not actually, because I also still don't care. Like, they ranked him 69th. Who gives a rat's ass? We know that's not the case.
Right, and the voting process for that top 100 thing's crazy. I know what happened. I'm guessing what happened. It's just players vote for their top 20 players, and they get these pieces of paper in the locker room, and it's usually like November-ish. And when was Lamar Jackson not playing football last year? November. It's and so people just didn't put him in their top 20 because he wasn't playing football. I wouldn't overthink it. I think one way to think about it is, look, Josh Allen, Mahomes, and Lamar Jackson are all coming off relative down years in different ways. The Allen great playoff performances, for the most part, kind of, covered up the fact that he wasn't as good as the year before either. So they're all a little down from where they were. But we did an exercise on our show of, all right, who would you want for 2026 alone? And Allen and Lamar ended up going 1-2 still. I had the 2 pick, and ultimately because of Mahomes'
that's what I was going to say. Like, based on the questions.
Yeah. There are questions, but it's like there's no one else. I would still rather have him than Joe Burrow. And I still like the idea of what they're doing to their offense, but I also think there's reasonable questions about how much is his decline in running going to affect the rest of his game, and how much is he really going to decline in running, like, because it was a thing last year.
No, there's no doubt it was the thing, and it's a weird conversation, Greg, because I don't think it makes sense that his running has declined as much as it has. I think it's insane that, in part, I think it's clear that he's had something to do with that and him not wanting to run as much. I think that's nuts, but in a bizarre way, I actually think we saw, and certainly down the stretch in the Pittsburgh game, like, he's answered any question that existed at the beginning of his career about can he pick you apart as a passer? Yeah. Yes, he
Yes,
can. He can
right.
utterly and completely pick you apart as a passer.
He just needs it as a threat. I think he needs to be in optimal condition, and that means just healthy. And I think he wasn't 100% last year, and that affected like his desire to run and the threat. And I think he threw the ball. I think he showed last year he can, kind of like Josh Allen did the year before. He can play dink and dunk ball. Like, he is a top 5 pocket quarterback in the league. I think the biggest problem that didn't get talked about with Lamar last year is, like, there weren't the wow throws. And that was, I think, a 2025 thing, and maybe it was the injury or anything, but it was, you weren't getting as many splash plays, and whether that's Greg Roman, whether that's Lamar, like, he didn't have as many like wow throws. It was more of a constricted offense, and then that's why I'm excited to see what
All right.
Declan Doyle can do with him.
You just had your Fiji moment because it was Todd Monken, not Greg Roman, but
Oh my
I'll
gosh.
give you the pass.
We just buried Greg Roman so much,
Right, right.
related to Herbert
No
on
doubt.
our podcast yesterday,
No
that I'm
doubt.
like mixing them all up.
I understand. I completely understand. You're not inherently wrong. Yeah, I'm at a weird place where this is still Lamar Jackson we're talking about. The Ravens have a chance because they have Lamar Jackson. That's the way that it goes. I still don't know. Like, when I see the Ravens as like favorites or betting favorites in the AFC, there's still this part of me is like, really? Like, don't they have to
Right.
reprove that before I just don't know that I can buy that necessarily. As much as I think they have a chance to be that, I still feel like they kind of have to prove that with a new head coach, new offensive coordinator, and a healthy Lamar. That part is weird to me.
Yes, and they have major questions in terms of their defense and their offensive line too. That really surprised me, but I think when I've dug into it a little more, it's really all about the schedule, kind of inflating their wins. And when you really look at it in terms of like how I think the betting markets and even some of the advanced stuff like Football Out, Almanac looks at it, it really seems like the top 5 or 6 teams are getting spit out pretty even in the AFC, and that
Mm-hmm.
they're all really good teams, and the Ravens are one of them. But the Bengals and the Ravens specifically are getting a real bump in these projection models from the out of division schedule. And look, sometimes that ends up being fool's gold, and sometimes it ends up being exactly what you think. And you have the 2025 Patriots, which at this time a year ago was getting projected in Vegas to make the playoffs despite despite not a lot of evidence, and it was almost all on the schedule. And you know what turned out? Like, the schedule really was the easiest in the league, and it really did change their entire season. So I think that's a big part of why Baltimore and Cincinnati specifically are getting juiced up a little bit in those markets.
The last time you and I talked, we talked about wide receivers and how many significant, prominent wide receivers were free agents, and here we are now on July 15th, and almost all of that group is still a free agent. And that says to me that some of it might be that, like, some of this is player driven, where some of these guys are just like, look, Keenan Allen's like, dude, just call me in August. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not running around in 100-degree heat. I'm not like that's what it suggests to me. But are you surprised at all that that the market is still as deep as it is?
Yes and no. Look, I probably overrated Diggs a little bit. Stephon Diggs coming off his off the field issues. I think if he didn't
Yeah.
have those, he would be in a different situation. And then, when you look at Deebo Samuel or Keenan Allen or some of the, those are guys who probably had expectations of what they were going to make. The young guys got paid pretty quickly,
Right.
and got paid plenty. Even a guy like a Romeo Dobbs is getting 18 to $20 million in this market. So it's really like the older guys. But man, could the Ravens use the football skills of Stephon Diggs specifically. We've been talking about it on the show. He was still a very valuable player. I think the Patriots like the experience, except for the legal stuff, which is not a minor thing. So
No.
they're going to have to figure out. But the Ravens are a team that have been known to take a chance on a guy if
Well,
they
they went
everything gets cleared.
they went from all to nothing, right? Like, and the
Yes,
aftermath of the Ray
right.
Rice stuff, and then weirdly,
Yep,
even after the Justin Tucker stuff, they still drafted Mike Green, right? Like, they still said,
yep.
yeah, we've kind of reversed course on this, and so I'm kind of with you. I still think it's plausible that it works out that way. Man, I know that you and I have talked about this before. I still can't escape it with Keenan Allen. I am convinced that you and I are going to be 100 years old and Keenan Allen is still going to be a productive wide receiver. Like, I just don't know.
He found a way last year, but I do think the fact that the Chargers aren't that eager to re-sign him,
Yeah.
he has had a thing lately, and I see this with a few different veterans where they'll like start out pretty well, but they're not built for 18 games or a 17 game schedule, 18 weeks or everything. We need to have with some of these veterans, especially in football, some like load management. That would never happen, but a guy like
Ooh.
Keenan Allen probably would
Yeah,
be
take a couple
better if
weeks
he
off in
just
the middle
played
of the
every other
season.
game.
Boy, that's a great thought. I had not even. Look at you. You can do an entire podcast about this topic. It sounds nuts, but I think you're 100% right. That, like, with certain
Football's so hard
veterans.
for those over 30 guys. It's so hard for the 25-year-old. It's just brutal. That's why I think Aaron Donald's coming back, but I think he's coming back like in mid-November because he knows how hard it'll be.
Calais Campbell, and obviously, a tragedy that's befallen his family, but like, Calais Campbell's 40 years old. 40 years old. Give him a
He
couple of weeks
he
off. Maybe don't make him
Right.
go to
I was
Brazil.
gonna
Like,
say he sort of disproves my theory because he's
yeah,
great every year, but actually he's pretty similar. Where in September and October of every year,
yeah,
he
he's
looks
awesome.
still
Yeah,
like one of the best defensive tackles
yeah.
in the league, and then after that, he's just like a solid enough player, and he fades a little bit.
Like, you get to that Brazil trip, just say, hey, bro, like, you don't have to go. Like, we'll see you next week. It's all good. What an idea that is. All right, I'm gonna leave you with this one because we had Joe Flacco on yesterday, and we were talking about how Joe has sort of become like America's sweetheart on this side of his career, and it led to
Yeah.
us trying to figure out who the biggest America's sweethearts are in the NFL at this moment. Like, who
Oh
are the
wow.
guys, and it's shamefully, it took us like 10 minutes to finally remember that, like, Jameis is basically at the top of the list at this point. But
Mm.
who
Mm.
are the, like, truly most beloved, easy to root for guys that
Oh
everyone
wow.
wants to see succeed in the NFL in 2026?
Mm. Does Miles Garrett count like
I
getting that?
we
I think
Miles
now he
Garrett
feels
was
like an
was
evil empire thing.
no, I hear you, but I still think the fact that he was very high on our list, like, he was incredibly high on our list, because I think the fact that he put up with the suck for as long as he did, I I
Yes.
I think it has made, like, I get it, like, yes, they've created a super team, and it's hard to, but it's not like the Rams have won 10 Super Bowls, like, it's not like he's
Yeah, he's almost like too young and too good though. Even though he's not young, he's 30. But I think you have to get into like the even later stages of your career to get to this level. It's a good question. I think Mike Evans,
I
I think
we
look, he's
absolutely,
won a title, but he
if
is beloved.
if
He is a
if
beloved
if
guy. Usually
Mike
it's quarterback though. Who's
if
another good quarterback? Mm.
we brought up Goff, right? Like, as a guy that, like, if he were to be
Mm,
there, you would want to see him win because of everything he's been through. But I don't think it's America's sweetheart. I think it's more,
no.
and he's not even high. I think that, like, casual football fans would rather see one of the Lamar, Josh Allen, Burrow triumvirate break through, like, just because it's so insane. It's almost becoming like a Jim Kelly, John Elway, Dan Marino situation with that trio, with the only difference being they weren't all drafted in the same year. It's just so bonkers that these three guys who, like, two are definitive Hall of Famers. Burrow is certainly, in that
Well,
mix.
yeah, I was talking about it with someone at work yesterday, and we were talking about it, and we were like, they have a while to go, but already are Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson the greatest two super like quarterbacks
have
in
never
history
won it.
to not make a Super Bowl. I
To
actually
not
think it's
make
not
one, right?
that,
To not make one.
not even make one, because in the only one that you would say not win one would
Fouts.
probably be
Oh,
Dan Marino.
Marino, yeah. Marino
I don't know,
Marino's
like,
definitively the greatest quarterback to
Fa-
never win a Super Bowl.
but I don't know if Fouts didn't make one either. But Fouts, I don't know if Fouts is peaked already. He didn't. I don't know if he had a 5-year peak that Allen and
That's a
Lamar
really good.
had. Where,
So like Fouts
you
and
know,
Moon are the greatest quarterbacks to never make a Super Bowl, and you're
hmm
probably right that like definitively like Allen. I said yesterday that I like because this conversation is silly with Lamar. All that matters is Lamar going to win a Super Bowl or not. It doesn't matter in terms of like he's a Hall of Famer. It's just is he going to win a Super
oh
Bowl or
yeah,
not, right? Like that's the only thing that stands here. And I brought up like you can say he hasn't made a Super Bowl or if he doesn't make a Super Bowl, but like we've already defined you can get to the Hall of Fame without making a Super Bowl. Dan Fouts and Warren Moon have proven that. But it is interesting because I said that, yeah, I'm like, and Lamar Jackson is definitely better than Dan Fouts. And so you're
right.
right. Like, because I think Josh Allen is definitely better than Dan Fouts. So I think you're right.
Well,
Like,
here's the thing, though. Here's the thing. Like, what would we have been saying about John Elway at this point in his career? And there's so many other. There's a million examples in the NFL
yeah,
and other sports. And so that's the thing that I hate about our job, which is like, yeah, like this is how careers go sometime. And
mm-hmm.
then once you actually get there and do the thing, then it's like, look at all the time we wasted talking about all that. Because I still tend to believe, and it's going to be tough in the AFC, but I still tend to believe like that both of those guys will get their shot, that they'll both make it there at some point in the next 4 or 5 years. And I hope, just for content's sake, that happens, and I hope they win one too.
I pray you're right. I do think that Garrett Evans like are two that are very high on this list, and you're right that it's weird we feel that way about Evans despite the fact that he's won one. But like if the 49ers were in the Super Bowl next year, I think we'd all be rooting for Mike Evans is just like the most likable superstar. I don't know how to explain it. He's just everything. Everything you want in a football player is what Mike Evans is to me.
And I saw some of your interview with Flacco. It was great. It is so true too that he has become that guy. And Cousins, who has done the Netflix show too,
Yeah.
Has to a lesser degree.
Yeah,
I
there's
think.
a likability
But
there. Yeah.
it is really funny though, because I did not feel that way about Flacco when those stories with him and Lamar, like, this happens with a lot of quarterbacks. Like, he would not have been, and I've got a comp for you before we go.
Okay.
He would not have been the guy that I would have thought loved ball so much that he just keeps playing and forever. And it almost reminds me of some of our tennis heroes who at the in the middle of their career, Agassi or Serena or whatever, like people would like question their love of the game or whatever. I used to think that about Flacco a little bit, and was he a good guy like ahead of? And then I think when sometimes those people like they settle into the end of their careers, and I think Serena is definitely one example of like people, how much does she love the game, and then in the end, it's like, yeah, she's the one that's playing forever.
It's an
interesting
interesting comp,
better
right?
than ever when they're older.
Because like Agassi would tell you he didn't love the game, right? Like he didn't.
Right.
Period.
I guess that was a bad one.
Yeah, but he was just really good at it, and kind of grew to appreciate. Like it's a weird. I know what you're saying. It's difficult for me because I think I've been very friendly with Joe for a very long time, and so I have known Joe probably a little bit better than other people have, and I've always found him way more fascinating, and I don't know that this has stunned me that he's grinded it out. Like there's just a part of me that like Joe doesn't want to do anything else. He doesn't have other interests.
I think I mistook how lackadaisical and just chill he was.
Yeah.
Maybe from a little bit of like does he love it and have the fire like some of his contemporaries at quarterback.
That's fair. That's fair. Remind everybody about the podcast.
Yeah, NFL Daily. And we got training camp starting next week. The first team show up. So then we really live up to our name, and we are back to being daily next week.
Looking forward to it. At Gregg Rosenthal with 2 G's. That's how you follow him as well. Thank you, buddy. Appreciate you. We'll talk soon. All right.
Thanks, Glenn.
Gregg Rosenthal with us here on GCR.